Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of March, where we are having a musical March theme. And tonight's episode is about Jim Henson's 1986 feature film called Labyrinth. So, I'm just going to read a little bio here about what the film is all about. And so 16-year-old Sarah, played by Jennifer Connelly, is given 13 hours to solve a labyrinth and rescue her baby brother Toby, played by Toby Crowd, when her wish for him to be taken away is granted by the Goblin King Jareth, played by David Bowie. So, let's go around the room and get everybody's first impressions. I'm going to start with you, Mo. What was your first impression of this film?
Well, The Labyrinth is one that I don't even honestly know if I remember the first time I saw this movie. I think I saw bits and pieces of it when I was so young that I was not really conscious of what the hell was going on. And then eventually saw more and more of it, as I got older. I don't know. I always kind of liked it. I've always leaned more towards the Dark Crystal, but that's just because of the general vibes of the thing. This is a really fun movie. I guess my first impression, now watching it this time, was that the owl reminds me a lot of the fucking owl from Clash of the Titans. If ever there was a moment they should probably step back and redo some CG. Just putting that out there.
The owl was certainly missing in the Sam Worthington version of the Clash of the Titans, for sure. But in any case, going over to you, Jake, why don't you... What was your first impression of this film? And I know this isn't the first time watch for you, but what was your impression now?
To be perfectly honest, I have no clear, definitive certainty that I have seen this film in its entirety before.
Really?
I don't know for sure. I know one specific time when I was in college, I remember coming back to the dorm when it was already on and sitting and watching it for a while. And I probably saw bits and pieces here and there over the years. It's possible that I saw it as a kid and just didn't register. But it was sort of then like watching it for the first... sort of like watching for the first time, even though it wasn't entirely. And overall, my impression is generally positive. It seems like one I probably could have had a lot of nostalgia for had I really watched it younger.
Okay.
It's kind of like Dark Crystal was one that I'd seen I don't think I had seen fully when I was younger. But some of the ones like Legend and Neverending Story, there is that nostalgia there. So it's like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, you can see why. You can see why there people are nostalgic.
Oh yeah.
Going over to you, Brandon. What is your impression of this film as it stands now?
I think I first watched this film when I was 7 or 8 years old. So it has been quite a bit. And I will agree with what Moa said in regard to that, is that there was during that time, the Dark Crystal was my jam at that particular age. And same thing, and it was the same up until my teenage years. And then I gained more love for that. I still love the Dark Crystal, don't get me wrong, but I gained a lot more love for Labyrinth when I was a teen because because of the music and David Bowie's involvement, and just me and my friends, watch that film like well, on a regular basis. So I have quite a bit of nostalgia and love for that film. But and watching it again, I'll admit there are a couple of things that are very different for me now than there were when I originally watched it. The owl being one of the minor things. Definitely one of them. I have to admit.
What was that motherfucker's name? Bubo? Isn't that his name in Titans? Bubo?
Yeah, he was just that owl was just fake as all get.
To their credit, at the end when it swoops in and becomes the real owl, they did pull that transition off pretty good. So.
Oh yeah, they did do that, and
also it's worth
Los
noting
80s.
to their credit, this was supposedly the first instance of a all CG animal being put in a film.
Oh, you can tell.
Yeah,
they're like, check it out.
Start
Just the
somewhere.
whole credit sequence. Like, that's just it. Check it. The owl flies by.
Yeah.
Owl
The
flies
animation sequence.
There's nothing
in the
even else.
very
I thought,
beginning.
like, yeah, there's just like, at first you think he's going to be just flying through the labyrinth all majestic. And then, nope, couldn't afford that. Oh, good.
No, but they could afford a real owl at least. So,
True.
but
I mean, it is a nice owl, too.
but okay, well, my experience with Labyrinth was almost the polar opposite because I had not seen the Dark Crystal, as many of you. I'd actually first been introduced to it by my fiance, and then my second time watching it was when we did it for the show. So I did not have the love or nostalgia that I have for this film, where I grew up with this film entirely, and I've always loved the Jim Henson creation company. I mean, I'd seen the storyteller while they played it on TV, and they were also the company behind Farscape.
Mm-hmm.
So. And I watched that series in its entirety too.
I can love it.
Fraggle Rock.
Fraggle Rock is the jam.
Fraggle Rock was my jam for a time, along with Eureka's Castle. And I guess the Muppets was kind of my jam for some time too. It's just I didn't get entirely all into the Muppets as I did Fraggle Rock. So.
I think I'd choose Fraggle Rock over the Muppets if it was just entertainment value, but like late night show quality stuff, like being musical performers and shit like that, I definitely prefer.
I don't know. Sheer entertainment, it's hard to beat that Happiness Hotel sketch.
And I get a kick out of the two hecklers in the corner from time to time. I mean. Those were the reasons to watch the show. What? That was it? That was awful. That was horrible. That was great.
That's actually a pretty damn good impression. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess since we're on the topic briefly, do you guys like the new Muppets?
You mean the one that they did on the ABC, like that brief kind of adult-oriented one?
Yeah, it's. I think it was like kind of like a 30 Rock show almost, but just with the Muppets.
I didn't know it was a show.
I liked it, but they gave up on that show way too soon for me to.
Indeed.
Yeah, they did. And the movies, the movies after Wizard of Oz, kind of paled in comparison to the original ones to me.
I mean, the second one, gosh, I can't think of the one where he's like running from the law. I didn't care for that one, but I really did like the newer Muppet movie. I mean, where they had I thought that they did a good job of revamping it. But we should get back on the task.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about Muppets all fucking night.
So, going back to Labyrinth, I mean, I really get into David Bowie's music and the style. I mean, he automatically has a fashion statement no matter what. So having him as the Goblin King, I can't think of anyone else to play him except for him.
Well, it's funny because they did go through a bunch of potential options. And apparently Jim Henson wanted Sting, but his kids were like, no, I got to do, or grandkids or whatever were like, Bowie. And I got to admit, both of them have proven their dramatic chops over the years, but it would have been a different than with Sting.
Yeah, it would have
been. And then the other one they were considering was Michael Jackson. And
that would have been different.
No, especially given today what we know in retrospect, having him play the Goblin King who kidnaps children and takes them away. The film probably wouldn't have aged in the same way in people's lives.
It would have entirely become true.
Actually, he would have made a much creepier Goblin King. I will give him that.
Although the music probably would have been pretty banging no matter which of them was in charge.
Yeah.
But,
It's funny to imagine like Ozzy as the Goblin King. Just all lines that aren't sang are just unintelligible.
Well,
she has no fucking clue what she's supposed to do because she can't understand a word he's saying.
Sharon, what was my line?
Actually, at that time, I could even see Alice Cooper as the Goblin King.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, that'd have been cool for sure.
Yeah.
Alice Cooper?
Oh yeah, that'd have been rather fun.
Probably would have done just as well too, star power wise, because I think '86 was like he had an album come out that year. That
Yeah,
that one that Welcome to My Nightmare shit.
Well, he had a resurgence to some of his back then. Yeah.
In the very beginning of this film, as it were, we have young Jennifer Connelly in her first starring role, if I remember correctly. And she is dressed up like a princess, and she's in her own little world as she says these lines from evidently a favorite book of hers, far beyond the Goblin City. And this is how the film begins, and we get a very much, a very young girl, and suddenly she realizes that what time it is, so she runs home, and apparently she's got the responsibility of taking care of her little brother, Toby. But she realizes that somebody's been in her room messing with her stuff, and she really doesn't want her brother around. So she wishes him away, and it happens. And that's kind of how it all begins. So what do we think about that beginning sequence? What do we think about Jennifer Connelly's character as a person, at least in the very beginning?
I do like that she's just going like full nerd in the park, single player LARPing her fucking favorite book with her dog,
Right.
And then she runs home and she's just like, damn it, I have to babysit. And then we find out that the nerdism goes further with those fucking teddy bears sitting on their individual little cubbies and they have names and shit. She's got a pretty good book selection too, if you check out the shelf as it pans over it when she's sitting at her little desk there. And, she's kind of harsh on her little brother. But I guess sometimes as kids, we have those moments,
Well, she's also very much older than her brother is. So imagine having a teenage daughter who thinks that her parents should give her all the attention, and all of a sudden this other kid comes along and takes up all the attention, It's kind of discerning because she's used to being that special child. Now she's got chores and responsibility and a stepmom.
Well, making a note, that's her. Technically, that's her half brother. But this is one of the changes that has come from me as a child versus an adult when it comes to this particular movie. Is as a child and as a teenager, I really identified with Jennifer Connelly's character, and I fully saw her out as the good guy back then. Uh, Plus, I thought her room was really cool. And as an adult, I'm listening to her and I'm like, God damn, she is a brat. I mean, she is a spoiled brat that was given nearly everything that she wanted by daddy. You could tell that by her room. And she valued things really, and that attention more than she really
Yeah.
valued the people around her. And it's a lesson that you get throughout the movie, and it's taught especially towards the end when you get to the junkyard scene. But
Well, it's also taught when the King, when she goes in that last scene, because he
yeah,
even tells her he gave her everything she wanted, and I'm tired of living up to your expectations. But we don't have to go there right now. So
yeah,
going back
we're
to
ahead of ourselves,
what you
but definitely bratty. That's
Well,
just the thing that hits me more than anything. And you expect it a little bit, but she really came across as a spoiled brat to me now. Whereas I'll admit, as a child, no, she didn't come across as a brat then. She was just like, I was like, I understand what she's going through.
right.
She's right. Those darned evil stepmother.
Yeah, we were probably kind of brats back then, though, so that's
Well,
why it's easier
exactly.
to
That's the
get on
that's
board
the
with.
thing.
And she makes her stepmom
As
out
well,
to be like a bitch or whatever, but
Of
really all
course.
she's saying is like, it'd be nice if you had a date and got out and like weren't just lost in your own world all the time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
well,
Because
also one thing that I think was kind of a lot of the things they were going for with the movie either got trimmed down for time or they just didn't end up in the final. And it's my understanding there was a whole backstory regarding her original mother having run off with a co-star who looked a lot like Jareth, aka David Bowie. Uh, so if you have that in mind, then her being a little bit touchy when it comes to the stepmother makes perfect sense.
yeah.
But I do agree that she did come off as kind of bratty. Um,
Well,
she came off as someone who was willing to not be stuck on that mode, which is
yeah.
good.
I mean, she has, and it brings up one
Yeah.
other point that I think I'm thinking about, and it's one that I'll probably bring up again later. Is there's a part of me that looks at this as not any type of reality or magic, but all of this just playing out in her head, either via psychosis or and her own retreat into her own mind,
Yes. I was going
or
to bring that up
or
at
her
some point.
own or her own personal struggle with her inner demons.
Right, and she uses the
Could
book
be-
as like a
that's
coping mechanism for all of it, you know? Like,
could very much be
Yeah,
a
exactly.
subconscious world that she develops over time to deal with the stress of having to look out for her little sibling. So, but in any case, moving right along. So she ends up having to say some particular words to wish her brother away.
Mhm.
And I like this little scene here with the goblins because all of a sudden they prick their ears up and they're all in the fucking closet, going, wait a minute, is she gonna say it? Did she say it yet? You know.
Yeah.
yeah, it's good stuff.
But in any case, she does right as she's walking out the room, and
She didn't even say, "I wish."
Yeah.
and right as she's going out the room, she turns around, and then she says exactly what you know, and you almost wonder if she actually heard them, you know, because she stops and pauses. So it's like, damn, did she hear it? But so she does. She walks out the room, and she comes back, and little Toby is gone. And I like that little bedroom scene too. With all of a sudden you see the little creatures like going behind her, and the one going underneath the sheets, and all that jazz. And suddenly that's when you see the owl flapping against the window, and of course David Bowie's entrance is always an entrance. But when he appears, what did you guys think of that beginning scene that we see him?
Oh, it's great, man. He's doing his marble tricks or whatever, and there's those little guys behind her on the bed and stuff. It's just it builds it up nicely. I think it's weird how calm she was being. I think that's kind of points to her still not necessarily caring that much. I think initially she just wants the baby back so she doesn't get in trouble.
Yeah, I guess she feels guilty.
All I got was one of the scenes in Nebraska, because I had watched it almost right before I watched this, and just where the guy enters with, "My parents cut me in this room, I'd be whipped." I don't know why, but that just popped in my head.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But she's technically there to babysit him while her parents are away. So all of a sudden he disappears, and she's got to get him back somehow. And because David Bowie kind of came in through the window, it's like that kind of opened up a portal into that other world. So she steps out into that world. And what do you think of the panoramic view of that city?
I absolutely love it, dude. I mean, I'm a big fan of like those. I think it's a painted background, isn't it?
Yeah, it almost looks like a painted background, doesn't it?
It did to me. I mean, I always dig that kind of shit, you know, like Dune the miniseries type stuff, only better, obviously. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan. Yeah, and I like how they didn't make the labyrinth doesn't look ridiculously big. It looks solvable, but then when you look closer at it, it's like, oh shit, this is actually pretty damn complex, you know.
Well, it's the film eventually shows us that there are many faces and many sides of the labyrinth coin. You know, I mean,
for sure, yeah. I just like that they didn't make it like. I mean, because they could have, just to try to make it imposing, made it like exaggeratedly big, you know. But it really looks like it's only a couple of miles, maybe. Like it's doable. That's what makes it all the more like convincing to me that she'd be like, yeah, I'm down.
So she ends up running into a particular creature by the name of Huggle. Which no, it's not Hogwarts. It's Huggle. Get it right. It's not Hogwarts. It's Huggle. Anyway,
just killing fucking fairies. I love it.
Yeah.
He's killing fairies, and he wants nothing to do with her, and yet she just comes into his existence. And he shows her where to begin, and then he's like, "Bye, see you later."
Mm-hmm.
So what do we think of this character of Huggle?
Well, I do like how he's just taking a leak in like a little pond that it totally has like fucking a bucket next to it, like someone's using this for something. It's not just a random body of water. I thought that was funny. I don't know. The fairy killing is good. It's a good touch. I'm always a fan of that, like, thing they do in certain fantasy stuff where shit you assume that's supposed to be cute and nice is really fucking evil and devious,
Mhm.
She's like, it bit me. Well, sure. What did you expect fairies to do?
It's just a
And
little
before we
bastard.
get even further along, ladies and gentlemen, spoiler alert, and we will probably spoil the crap out of this movie for
Probably.
you. So, in any
But I also liked the little touch of, like, she kept trying to ask him how to get into the labyrinth, and he was just playing, not giving a good response. And finally, he's just like, "You're not asking the right questions."
Mhm.
And it's like there was a lot of that sort of thing of, like, you had to look at things in a specific way or ask things a specific way, which was, I believe, was one of the recurring themes of this was you had to approach things from a different angle to get ahead, which is kind of a fun theme they had.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
because not everything is as it seems.
Right.
That's the recurring theme that you're talking about. So,
You got to not take things for granted. Because the whole thing, like, you're taking these things for granted, which was just the repeated thing over and over again. It's all dependent on that point of view, which plays out. I mean, they smack you upside the head with that theme at the very beginning so that you can understand, especially right as she gets into the labyrinth and has a run-in with the worm just like right afterwards. I
Yes,
always
that
wanted her
worm.
to. I always wanted to see her, just have her say yes. Let me go inside and have a cup of tea.
Right? Dude, this time especially, I don't know if it was the buzz I had on, but I found myself, like, inordinately fascinated with the fucking worm's life. Like, what's going on in there? He said he had tea and a wife,
Why don't you why don't you join me for tea? Let me let you meet the missus.
It really
All right, come inside. Meet the missus.
It struck me as one of the most. The screenplay, of course, was originally written by Terry Jones, and apparently they brought him back to kind of reinsert some humor after some of it had been drawn out by all the different moving parts. Because apparently he wrote the screenplay, and then about 7 or 8 people contributed to it as they went along. And Terry Jones, of course, our recently deceased Python member. This scene with the worm just reminded me of a miniature Monty Python sketch, and it would have been nice if there were a few more moments. I mean, Sir Didymus brought a little bit of that in as well, but
and maybe like the door dudes a little bit.
Yeah.
Or even little touches like where she's trying to mark her path, and those people are just like coming out up of the ground and cursing her out.
Yeah, he says your mother's an aardvark at one point.
Yeah.
And I'm totally using that in the future for sure.
Yeah. But you can't top. Yeah. You definitely can't top the. Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelled the face. You can't really top that.
Of course, there was the old man with the turkey on top.
Of course.
And, of course, the knockers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I do agree. It would have been nice if she had joined the worm for some tea. That would have been a very.
I would imagine it would be a very, very on birthday to you. Yes, to you.
I just wanted. They really did us a disservice by not doing like a lengthy follow up with that worm at some point in the movie.
Oh yeah, I agree.
We should have seen him with like his worm family. Maybe he has kids or something, you know, or like one of his kids is grown in worm college or something like that.
I still think it would have been a Mad Hatter tea party. That would have been great.
What would he even be making the tea out of? I don't imagine anything
Right.
good grows in the labyrinth. So
The bog of eternal stench tea.
they
Something
figured
like
out a
that.
way to
There
filter
you
out
go,
the
you-
stench.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
would have been a good time to run into him again. You know, what are you doing? I'm gathering tea. I don't know.
But
Oh, and you know, on the Alice in Wonderland tip, like this does have very much feel like a similar feeling of being inside of a storybook type vibe, you know.
Well, and
Oh, yeah.
also, I read in the background info that this was apparently loosely inspired, very loosely inspired. I think the book is called Outside Over There. It was a Maurice Sendak book. And of course, Sendak did Where the Wild Things Are, which is actually shown in Sarah's room.
It is.
But that would be the Sendak connection definitely fits in with what you were just saying. That because that's kind of Where the Wild Things Are is a fantastic setting of this little brat who has to learn a lesson, and it was very interesting. But yeah.
It's a fairly good
how-
documentary on that dude, actually, if I remember right.
yeah.
So after the little worm episode, she ends up finding out that there are places in the labyrinth that are not as they seem.
Right.
So she walks straight through the wall on the worm's insistence and finds her way on a different path to somewhere else.
That little fucker is like, "Don't go that way," and
And then as she walks off,
And then,
if she'd have gone that way, she'd have gone straight to the castle.
and my issue with that is, I wouldn't have asked if he's like, "Don't go that way," and hadn't continued, but he says, "Never go that way,"
Yeah,
and that would have
that's
made me
because-
ask, like, why not? You know, is there some type of
Yeah.
weird directional thing here?
understand why he would say that, because you don't want to go that way. That's where the bad guys are. But
Right.
I mean, yeah, like, never go that way.
Oh,
She'd have kept on going that way. She'd have gone straight for that castle. Yeah, that to me was just.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
right.
Hey, we've been having a pretty bad time today, so almost didn't come on.
so
I'm
what
glad to
was
have you.
indeed? So what was your first impression of this movie, Dustin?
Well, I have a little bit of a history with it. So I first heard of it during undergrad, and somebody was like, "Hey, have you ever seen The Labyrinth?" No, I hadn't. It's like, well, it's your birthday this week, so let's play the Labyrinth drinking game. So, this person had the somewhat crazy idea to have my first time seeing this movie be a drinking game. And we had 4 or 5 people, and she had written a list of like things to drink for that was about a page and a half long. There were like 30 some things,
Jeez.
and it very quickly fell apart.
I bet.
It was a very
Yeah.
it was a weird movie.
Gonna need that list
mean,
if you
it's-
can get that to me. At some point.
Oh, I have no idea. It's like whenever Jareth messes with the balls, like that was one of the ones in there. I think that's about the only one I remember.
Mm.
Yeah, he broke more of those crystal balls than the what was it? Than the Riddler broke his staffs and Batman Forever.
Ah.
No, I'm sorry. That was funny. I was coughing though.
Okay. Now.
Anyway, so I rewatched it tonight. I've been pretty sick the last few days. Plus, I just keep getting lots and lots of bad news. So I was kind of like zoned out during. But it's a good movie. You know, it's got a lot of creativity in the creature designs, and there are quite a few moments where I'm like, "What's going on?" And then it's just like, just sit back and enjoy the journey. Don't ask questions.
How'd you feel about that? How'd you feel about that CGI owl? It's revolutionary, right?
I've seen worse. I mean, the owl was cool. I thought the owl was cool. That really was CGI, wasn't it? I guess I just didn't really notice. Wow.
Again, a product of its times. I think I've seen worse and more recent stuff. Pinata Survival Island comes to mind.
Well, that just sounds like something where it was intentionally bad. All jokes aside, it is cool that they featured something that was ahead of its time like that. But
right.
I just can't unsee the connection between it and the Clash of the Titans owl. So,
Jim Henson, though, was always trying to be. He was a workaholic, and it was one of the two hopes. And if anybody hasn't seen it, there is a YouTube channel called Defunct Land?
Amazing.
It's an amazing channel, and they did this Jim Henson documentary on the channel that was amazing. It was just awesome.
That's some shit. He should have been paid by Netflix to do that or something.
Oh yeah, that was
fantastic.
That was just really cool and in depth. And you got to see both of these were just major attempts to do something new and to just really put, well, as he always did, but that was sad because both of them were kind of failures. Cult classics now, but failures back then.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, talking about Jim Henson, the one thing that I did have a nostalgia value, watching the documentary, I think it's called Inside the Labyrinth or whatever. They have all these interviews and whatever. I had totally forgotten, but back in the day, Jim Henson was a fairly visible public individual, and he had a very distinct look. Like you knew Jim Henson. Oh, yeah. I know that guy. And I had totally forgotten that because he passed away so long ago. And I was watching this documentary. I'm like, oh, this feels so nostalgic somehow. It was.
He's one of those dudes that really perfected this fluffy beard and sweet sweater combo that just made him seem so.
Watching that behind the scenes too, you get to realize that the person who is actually playing Huggle is in fact a female underneath that, a little female little person.
I like that.
It's just they're using a total different voice for him. In fact, I think it's Brian Henson who's actually voicing him.
Technically, there were 6 people playing Hoggle. Yes. There was the girl, and Henson was voicing the guy and doing most of the lip movements. And then there was a team of 4 other puppeteers all controlling that head. That's crazy.
So we were talking, I guess we were at the point where she ends up finally really legit entering the labyrinth because that whole first scene was kind of just that initial test. That way of just going about it and just testing that, again, understanding your point of view, looking at the labyrinth for what it is and not for what it appears to be. A lesson that keeps having to be taught, but still, it's just kind of cool to see that scene and where we go from there.
So, apparently, right after it went the way that the worm said not as said to go,
Uh-huh.
Shortly after that, she ends up running into I believe it was the doorways that had like 4 different people like looking out at them eventually, because they said, if I remember correctly, they said that one will lead you to the castle, the other will lead you to impertinent doom.
Wait. The way it's supposed to do is dun dun dun.
Right. With the Chinese dog in the background.
Yeah. And
But,
then they were like, well, can you tell me which is which? And they're like, no, we can't, but maybe they can or whatever. But one of them only lies, and the other one only tells the truth. It was like, that was a little.
yeah, and they kind of did like a Abbott Costello kind of thing where it was like, well, okay, I understand it. So if I go through that door, then that door will lead me to the castle. And so,
I didn't quite get her logic there. Can somebody explain the logic she used for that puzzle? And there are ways to get around it, but there wasn't the way she used it, so, which I don't think she did it right necessarily. So yeah.
Mo, do you think you can?
One sec, buddy. My fucking dryer is like on its spin cycle right here.
This is a rough night for everybody.
Yes, indeed. Damn daylight savings.
Well,
I know. For me, it's kind of hard to. This movie moves really fast from like one scene to another, and I actually got lost myself quite a few times, which is appropriate, I suppose. But so I'm not quite sure where we are.
Oh, so double dudes at the doors. Sorry, I'm sorry about that, people. It was, I didn't know anybody started a fucking load. They usually don't do it this late. Those guys are. I always thought they were kind of dumb. Like now, I guess I kind of get the logic. She does to a point, you know. She does the whole thing where she's like, well, if you always tell the truth and you say that he would say that it's this one and he always lies, then you know it's still the right door, kind of a thing. It's confusing and it's definitely meant to be, but I guess it kind of makes a bit of sense, you know. I just always get sort of bummed on those dudes. Like, imagine being such a stupid creature whose whole purpose is just to tell a riddle, you know?
Well,
or
I mean, to me,
go ahead.
it leads to the scene that frustrates me the most, which is her conversation with the hands, like just a moment later.
Yes, I do like that scene just for, like, I guess a puppetry kind of thing, if you can call it that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like neat the way that they do it, but yeah, that part is kind of annoying, and it really is unnerving to me, the idea of like sliding down this fucking pit full of hands.
Yeah,
that is a weird thing. You know, I mean, you don't expect all of those hands to be there, looking like John motherfucking Genie's hands, you know. So,
well, they are helping hands.
She makes the right choice to go down, though. Like, this is, I think, the part where she kind of starts grasping that maybe you have to make the choice that doesn't seem like you should make to progress forward, you know? Was
it, though? Because she went directly to the oubliette, which was technically the trap. The fact she's like, well, I'm pointed down, so I guess down's where I need to go. But
but Hoggle was waiting down there, so I mean, if we're working just in like a, you know, chain of events type thing, I guess it did lead her there, but I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, if he hadn't came, she'd have just withered into a skeleton down there or some shit.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what those are for.
Yep.
So in this next scene, we have her running into Hoggle, and he's there because I decided to come help you out anyways, since you seem like you didn't really know how to get to the castle. So he finds a way out for them, and then lo and behold, they run straight into the Goblin King, who evidently cowers Little Hoggle into he keeps telling him about this bog of eternal stench that evidently everyone is scared of.
Which didn't even seem that bad. It was just a fart swamp, I mean, it would suck to be suspended there.
Well,
it would.
Nobody loves to smell that like that.
We are skipping over the talking faces though in the walls. Those guys were sweet. Like as they're walking along.
Oh man,
There's
there's
that one
so much cool visual stuff in this movie. Like, does
they
it even
had
need
fun
a
with
plot?
it, for sure. It really doesn't. You could probably watch it on mute with like a badass fucking Rush album on or something.
Well, the first time I saw it, we were intensely drunk and we still had a good time.
Oh yeah,
Because she would be, man, that was such a poorly designed game. It's like, okay,
it sounds like a lot of fun though.
We would basically just like watch her instead of watching the movie, and she's like, okay, now, and it's like, all right, and we were like dying at the end of it. But seeing it in kind of a fugue state from just the unbelievable bad weekend I had, without any alcohol, it's a bit of a similar experience because it's just like, whoa, stuff's happening. It's like, okay, there are gnomes in armor and they're beating up that monster. Okay, we've saved the monster. The monster is our friend now. And it just keeps going. Like,
I like how those dudes ride around on those little dinosaur creatures and just control them by the details and shit. That was like awesome.
It's like it's very psychedelic, just in like earth tones.
I feel like somebody drank pretty heavily when they were making it.
I'm glad that you mentioned those talking heads. They kind of remind me a lot of what are those heads near Stonehenge or whatnot?
That's totally different part of the world.
Island,
That's not in England at all.
But
I feel it.
Bring it into this underground atmosphere, eh?
I feel like there's like a similar stone head on like the cover of a fucking Pink Floyd album too. So there you go. Bringing that psychedelic shit full circle. It really is an awesome visual treat of a movie, because it all has that like soundstage Wizard of Oz fucking storybook feeling to it, And like one thing I trip out a lot just watching it is the sky in the background above the labyrinth walls,
Oh yeah, it's got a lot of cool things.
Views.
Once we get to talking about the special effects, it's going to be quite a discussion. So we get to there, and then we have the meeting in there, and the of course extra threats of tossing him headfirst into the bog of eternal stench, which is a nasty threat because it means that you're going to smell bad forever. Though the way that they look, I picture that they do smell bad anyway. But I guess maybe not bog of eternal stench bad.
But if you go in head first, that means it's going to be up in your nostrils forever and ever and ever.
Whew.
And that's not fun.
Yeah, even if you do get it to go away, you'll have those moments where it's like flashback, like fucking remembering the taste.
It's like an acid flashback, but different.
But that was cool to see the extra disguise. I mean, him playing that beggar and then suddenly materializing as Jareth at the
he just rips the mask off.
So
I remember that the very first time I saw it, and it took me a surprise.
I'm going to take a guess that one of the things in the drinking game is every time Jareth randomly shows up.
Yeah, I think that was one of them. Yeah.
I could
definitely the moment where I realized that they fit those trousers a little snug though, because there's like a couple of like, whoa, buddy. There's like kids in this movie and shit.
That was that's appeal for women.
That's another thing with this movie. One of my friends that we tried to watch this with, he noticed the giant David Bowie crotch bulge as well. And every time we saw like a figure of Jareth from the movie, he was like, "Hold on a second," and he would like look it over, and he's like, "Yep, they got that part right."
Yeah, it's accurate.
He's like checking figures. For
I think I'd be a little disappointed if my figure of Jareth didn't have the crotch bulge. You know, it's probably iconic for some people at this point. You know,
It wouldn't be legit without it. I mean,
yeah. So,
geez, I'm not even going to go there.
go ahead and say what you were going to say.
yeah, please do.
Well, we were talking at the beginning about some of the alternate Jareths. That would have scarred a whole generation of people, I'm sure.
oh my.
Well, I know that there are a lot of females that love David Bowie in this film.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Just for that crotch bulging. So, in any case. But Huggle and
Huggle,
yeah, Huggle.
Huggle, bro. I guess it's more than just a thing in the movie. It is hard to
I'm
say.
sure
his name,
someone
right?
called him Huggle in the movie.
Huggle.
You know, I keep having and Brandon will get this reference, but everyone kept getting his name wrong. They kept flubbing his name. And having just watched Bakemonogatari, I just keep hearing that one character go, "I flubbed it."
Yeah. I flubbed it.
Jeez.
Well, in any case, Huggle and Sarah eventually separate ways, and she goes off on her own because they start to hear a sound, a growl. So she goes around the corner, and it turns out that these little creatures have these like little creatures on sticks, and they're trying to harm this big ass orangutan looking dude.
He's
That's
supposed
hanging
to
up.
be like the Minotaur of the Labyrinth, yeah.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
I think we're also glossing over that they didn't just separate ways. They were talking about how they were friends, and Hoggle hears the roar, and he's like, "Fuck that! I'm friends with myself." And
Yeah.
Survival of the fittest. I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Well, she even takes his jewels in order to try and basically say you're going to guide me or else, because they end up having to do that to escape the cleaners, of course.
Right, yeah.
The cleaners is definitely that's an interesting. That one scared me as a child.
Right.
I'll admit, but I was like 7 or 8 when I watched this for the first time. So of course that was a bit. See that giant drill come towards and try to like. That was pretty nasty or scary for.
Don't they do a similar thing in Dream Warriors, the Nightmare on Elm Street movie? Isn't there like a big fucking thing coming down the hallway that's gonna chew him up?
Yeah. Then I was thinking of Indiana Jones with the ball.
Well, that moment though before that with Jareth, we kind of skimmed over the part too, where that's like a big lesson moment of the movie, because she gets kind of clued into the fact that like, bitch, life isn't fair. This isn't a fair thing here. Like, I can make it worse for you if I have to.
His actual lines like, "Why is everything so fair? I would love to find out your basis for comparison."
Yeah, he's that's fucking cold right there. He's basically saying, you're a little girl, you don't even know what unfair is. Like, you're spoiled, you know. So how about this death machine? And that's a good way to teach a lesson right there, you know.
Well, his very lines are, "Oh, you think the labyrinth is so easy? Well."
Yeah, he pushes the time forward 3 hours.
He was getting a bit cocky there, you know.
Take that, then. Well, it bothered him that she thought that the labyrinth was so easy, so he made it more difficult.
I mean, in fairness, she still completed it, so maybe it was kind of easy.
Well, with help.
True.
with a little help from her friends.
Yeah.
Not to get all Beatles with you on it, but and it is. But ultimately, they end up like falling through like this cliff that ended up having them almost fall into the unbearable eternal stench area.
We went way over because we were back to where Bluto was introduced.
That's right. Bluto introduced himself, and he was like, Bluto down.
And he has a very weird power of being able to mentally command rocks.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
Rocks are my friends.
When did Magic Dance get its playtime? Was that around this? No.
Yeah,
that was during the section where she's writing on the tiles. That's where.
Yeah,
that was around that time in between. Yeah,
that was an interesting song because, and actually, all of the songs were interesting. At least those were that were sung by David Bowie. Because I found out that he actually wrote and sung all of them.
Oh yeah,
right.
And
even the one with the weird red creatures that came later.
I think that there's a lot to say about that. You know, the musical numbers kind of come as almost a separate inserted music video type thing in the movie. You know, like so it's natural that talking about the sequence of events we would skip over it because what the fuck's he's just chucking babies around and fucking singing. You know? At one point, one of those goblins shoots a chicken with a blowgun, and that is for some reason like one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Just fucking, you know, and it has no, it serves no point to the plot or the lyrics even about the movie.
The lyrics on this one are weird. It's a weird song.
It feels like Bowie just had songs he didn't get to sing on an album or something at some point, and he was like, "Fuck it."
When I was a kid, my sister used to rap that very beginning to me, and I never knew where it came from until I saw this movie.
Wait, she used to rap it?
Yeah, on car trips. She used to like rap it to me in car trips because it was, you know. The very beginning of that you do remind me of the Babe.
Yeah.
She used to rap it to you like hip hop style.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
Now I just want to see the whole movie rapped.
Yeah.
Well, it's a worthwhile one to look at.
Babe with power. What power? Power to the voodoo. Voodoo. You do. Remind me of the Babe.
It's just weird, you know, and it's kind of its own separate thing to the whole rest of the movie. I feel like
it's his way of going over basically kind of it's his taunt. It really is taunt towards the girl. It kind of gives you a little bit more insight into him as a character, and just kind of gives the villain that extra screen time. And he's talking about like, you know, it's just really his taunting song in that sense. It moves. It doesn't move the plot forward a lot, but it definitely has its points, and is an awesome song. Otherwise,
oh well, yeah. I would never say that I'd want that segment of the movie not to have that kind of overlaid on top of it, because it's just a great lighthearted moment too. You know, he's chucking the babies, and the little guys are flipping her tiles, and
I found out behind scenes that originally they had only like 20 actors in that scene,
right?
And they had to add like 20 more actors to that scene because they realized it looked so sparse.
Yeah.
Plus, you know, no, some of those that were jumping were actually little dwarfs, you know, in suits. So,
can't lie, I'm disappointed that you didn't say that it was that the stunt baby didn't look real enough, so they chucked the actual kid.
Well, actually, there is something about there is something about the little baby that I thought was kind of interesting. Evidently, the child never did anything. So when he chuckled and shit, guess who that was? That was Bowie.
Yeah.
Oh, that is terrifying. Fun fact: that kid, like as a man, was a guest at our local science fiction convention one year. That I didn't go watch them or like thing because what is he gonna say that I was a baby?
Right.
They made a movie, you know. I kind of wish, you know, in hindsight, that maybe I'd checked it out because I'm sure he's a fan of the movie, but it's weird that he does convention appearances.
Well, his
Are there
whole
other-
Also,
Go ahead.
it's also odd to listen to that song on the soundtrack because, of course, all the goblins are not on the soundtrack for the song. It's just David Bowie's parts.
Wait, what?
And it's
Why?
Oh, have you ever listened to it? Yeah, I don't know what that was about, but yeah, it's just basically David Bowie doing a lot of this stuff.
See,
it
okay,
still works, but it's very different.
that's where I take some issue with the music, the musical element to this. Okay, because as a kid, I don't know that I really knew who David Bowie was. I'm sure I'd heard the name from my parents and like my uncle or some shit. But he was nothing to me. I didn't understand that he was like a rock star or whatever. Now looking back at it, you can definitely see how there's moments where it's like, I'm kind of making this about me for a second.
Well,
Again, you know, this whole song is just like me just inserting my shit into this motherfucker. It's the
I think there are
price you
two
pay.
different versions of the song. To be honest, there's the one with the creatures, and then there's the one without. So, and the one that's without, I think, is the one that's more popularly played.
Ugh, that's gross. I mean, the fucking goblins give it that charm of being like a crazy goblin party, you know?
Oh yeah, it's the Jim Henson touch. I agree with that.
So
Alrighty.
again,
I don't know. Oh no, go ahead.
Sorry. So
sorry, so they one of the things I had read was the whole reason they called him Toby was that was his name and that was the only thing he would respond to. But but I was
already a
looking at
prima
this.
donna.
Yeah. No, I mean his old man was one of the chief, like I think he was like the chief character designer or something, and that's why they used him. But apparently he now is working with Leica Studios and has done some work with Weta. So he's got some good. That was his only ever acting credit, but if you can call it that. But
Hey, I mean, he acted like a baby because he was one.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, getting back to the story line. So, after the magic dance, we are still traveling with Ludo, and I'm assuming that that's when we run into those creatures that are in the bog of unbearable stench.
Well, they get into another door conversation.
That's right,
Which-
the
so we-
knockers.
Mm-hmm. And it's like another bit of that weird zany Alice in Wonderland style humor again. Where you got one that has the ring through its ears and one through the mouth. Which I don't know what it was, but I thought to myself, my God, she's a cruel one. The guy doesn't want the ring back in his mouth. She doesn't know which door leads to what. There's no like this is going to kill you thing. She just automatically decides to take the one that's the cruelest.
Well,
I guess
I don't know. She wanted to shut him up first.
It's weird that
And
he
then, of
just
course-
spit it out,
Yeah.
really. Like, I mean, he was
And
able
of
to let
course,
go of it when
I
she
guess
tugged on it.
Well, evidently it was a magical ring that once it got into his mouth, it was infused inside. But
They even kind of had a Disney look to them, those door knockers, you know.
Yeah.
It looked like something that would have been in like Alice in Wonderland.
something like that. Well, anyways,
Yeah.
as they go in, she's like apologizing to him, and he's like, "Oh no, it's okay, it's fine. It happens all the time."
I'm used to it. But it
But
just, I don't know, it just struck me as kind of like, why does it have to be that one? I mean, I understand in a sense, but it just, because I mean, as they said, it's like, uh, she says, so where do they lead? It's like, search me, we're just the knockers.
mhm.
They don't know where the fucking doors lead. So, it's just,
Yeah, all they see is like the wall on the other side when they're opened, you know?
which is what really separates it from the last door trial, where they know, well, they both know in a way which door leads to what, and she had a definite need to go through one or the other.
Right, right.
Well, no one in the labyrinth is going to tell her where or how to get to the Goblin King. Nobody know how, So, and they're all trying to lead her that way. But in any case, both Hoggle and Sarah end up dropping through the floor of this cliff, and almost like tumbling into the bog of unbearable stench. Well,
It still
and
goes away.
this was actually after Hoggle ran into the Goblin King once again, because he gave her the
Oh,
peach.
and that was before he rescued her from the crazy red things. Those also were creepy as heck. And surprising that David Bowie was the one who did that song, but where they could separate all of their limbs and bodies. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I don't know. What were they called? What did they call those things?
Well, evidently Brian Henson had come up with the creature design. They were
Demon
just
goblins.
they were creatures that could have like their hands and and it's interesting listening to the behind the scenes, because they had to come up with the idea of how to make these puppets interchangeable like that, and that was
Yeah, it's fascinating to that's I think the scene in the movie for me, other than the hands one, that's probably the most fascinating from like a puppetry standpoint.
I mean,
you know,
they had to make legs, arms, heads remove. That had to be an interesting process.
I feel like I saw behind the scenes footage of people working them once too, maybe in one of those special features on the DVD or some shit.
Yeah.
When you talk about like a goblin party, those people, they knew how to party. They were just like all about partying. That was like their thing.
Yeah, honestly, I mean,
Right.
again, when he shot that chicken with the blowgun, I knew they were my kind of people. I think. Just fuck it.
Well, in
It
any
takes a
case,
certain caliber of people, to shoot shoot a chicken with a blowgun. I mean, that is like,
Well, it was non-lethal. He was just
Yeah.
partying. He was like, "This is. I have the urge to do
Yeah.
this right now."
in any case, they end up running into Ludo again after falling on him, and they come across this bridge, which is protected by this little ass dog who rides a little ass dog, by the name of Ambrosia, and I forget what dude's name. What
I can never
Sir
pronounce it. I
Didymus.
hear
Sir
Didymus.
Yes.
Yeah, Sir Didymus.
who
Uh,
was played by Dave Golds, who also played the Hat, the four guards, and the left door knocker, as well as one of the fiery three. I guess that's what they were called, fireys.
Oh.
Right.
Oh, there you go.
So sort of like a play on the word fairy, I guess. But,
They're
Possibly.
swamp fairies. They're fart fairies, man. They live in that swamp.
Eh,
yeah.
might as well be.
Yeah, just don't lose your head over
Oh god.
it. But
Didymus rules, though.
yeah,
Easily
he's
the best
awesome.
character in the movie for me,
Kinda
outside
like
of the worm.
he's like the Don Quixote of dogs.
That's what I was thinking. Is like it just had that strong Don Quixote feel to him.
Oh, tilting at windmills and shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Like I
ultimately,
said, in
may
some
cross
ways,
this
he
bridge
is
without
very
my-
much.
Ludo and Sir Didymus have a fight between each other, and they have kind of a stalemate, which allows them to finally ask the question: can we have your permission to pass
It's,
over this bridge?
Because he had said, like, none may cross this bridge without my permission.
It's so good and subtle too, because it's like the way that it all ends up happening. It's like, oh shit, no one's ever actually just asked. You know, but they do it without coming right out and saying it, which I appreciate.
Oh,
Now,
so
here's
like
the
they
thing for
say-
you guys. Go ahead.
It's like they say at the beginning, nothing is ever as it seems in the world of the labyrinth. It's just that's the really cool thing about it. Is just nothing is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, agreed. Like,
and ultimately, Hago gives her the speech, and which takes her into Sarah into a dreamlike world where she's all dressed up and she's at a masquerade, and then that's what when David Bowie sings like this beautiful song about when the world world falls down. I think the name of the song was.
Yeah, she's having like ballroom fantasies. They spiked that peach with some good
As
shit.
the world
you
falls
know.
down. It's such a
Like,
sad world.
She's zonked out of her gourd on Fruity Loops right there. Fucking thinking of some masquerade ball where she's.
But it ends up dumping her into like this big ass trash heap that's in front of the Goblin City. She ends up running into someone who kind of looks like Olga from Dark Crystal. So
She does, yeah, and that's another thing I wanted to bring up about. Oh goddamn it! What was his name again? The fox dude.
Sir Didymus.
Didymus. There you go. The way his mouth opened reminded me a lot of that dog puppet in the Dark Crystal. Like there was just a similar quality to it. I don't know. Like when he opened his mouth really wide.
Okay. And the goblins themselves kind of reminded me of the creatures that each of the characters became after their essence was stolen. So,
Yeah, well, they reminded me of those podlings. Isn't that what they're called in Dark Crystal?
Yeah.
Those little.
yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some like similar art style between the two.
So, but of course, once they get to the Goblin City, they get inside, and then there's this big, gigantic, Paul Bunyan-esque looking creature that kind of comes together as the gates close, which is kind of cool. Because it starts walking.
Well, we're missing out on the trash people.
Oh yeah, well, the
yeah,
trash first.
Remember, we got the trash people before that, where she learns another good lesson right there for the movie.
Well, yeah,
that plays right to her her sense of just at her essence of she's just more about things and herself than anything else around her. So it really addresses her selfishness just head on.
well,
And
again,
that
she's still in a state of evidently blankness from that dreamlike state. So, but go ahead and continue.
But there was one thing, and I wanted to ask you all about this. I mean, your thoughts. I never double checked on the on any of the lore behind this, so it's very possible that I am wrong. But I was thinking about this stuff, and I thought, it's like, what if these creatures were all just like people that became greedy and ended up taking on all of this stuff, and then just eventually became these weird hoarding women creatures. And I thought that was like, because you could even see it a little bit as as she was like stacking more and more stuff up on her back. Like, this is gonna make her just like them.
Yeah, it's like she's she's making her a trash pack to carry around type thing. I was gonna save it for later, but there is something to that they expand upon a bit in the Labyrinth comics, which we actually did for Comic Club a while back.
Oh, really?
I forget which publisher it is. I think maybe Boom or Avatar or something like that, but definitely worth checking out. I've got the first 10 issues of it or whatever.
I gotta get in on that one of these days.
But yeah,
I've read those and the Dark Crystal ones. They're really awesome.
Yeah, the newest Labyrinth series that came out across last year is pretty dope, dude. They expand on this pretty greatly, you know. And there is something to that. Some of the people are like people from the real world that became things in the Labyrinth, you know.
Okay. So
I can kind of see that, I think.
So during that whole scene, that's when that's when her friends rescue her, and they end up going to the Goblin City, and they get inside, and then the gates close behind them, and then all of a sudden this gigantic monstrosity of a suit of armor comes walking towards them, and that's when Huggle decides to come and save the day, and
it's pretty epic.
It is pretty epic.
Jerks the fucking helmet off that bitch, and it's just a podling in a mech. It's fucking chucks that little bastard out of there, then falls
then, of course,
like a lot of feet for a minute.
The podling has the audacity to be like, "How rude!"
It just keeps going with it until he takes like, "Oh no, I'm throwing you out of this."
But
that's the world's intricacy. It's just like with the cleaners, and they're trying to run the cleaners down there, and it's just a bunch of these the small ones just riding a bicycle behind it.
Well, and right before that,
I don't know what it is, dude. Maybe it's. I think for me, it's like the idea of two kids in a trench coat trying to like get a ticket to an R-rated movie or something. That just makes me love the idea of like tiny things inside a big thing working it. You know.
Of course,
I get great pleasure when I find out that there's small people inside.
This is where it gets a little loony. So apparently, there's a herald that comes straight to the Goblin King, tells him, "Hey, the girl that you're trying not to have come here is coming here with her friends to the castle. So what do we do?" And he's like, "Well, go do something. Get off your asses and go hop to it. Do what you do." So.
And it's a pretty sweet battle that they have with the goblins. I like how they beat them with like straight Scooby-Doo tactics of just running around.
Well,
like, let's just run in a zigzag pattern in between shit. You know.
And of course, Ludo comes out with his big ass rocks.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's what makes it even more fun at the end.
I think one of my favorite scenes in that whole ensemble is where one of the goblins has just shot one of the little goblin things out, and he's like, "Hey, I just shot you!" And then a little bit later,
did anybody else get the vibe though when that fucking other like gun goblin shot off the machine gun rounds? That it was like, whoa, dude. Okay. Like, it was whimsical before. Now you're fucking busting clips into the crowd. Like it just felt like it
got pretty wild.
Serious stuff. Yeah, it's like, what? This is proper deadly now.
Well, I'm not sure if this is in the same sequence or not. I got a little muddled at the end because I was just, I don't know, but I know this did have some really great post big dude in a mech. I do know it was post that we had some great Didymus moments, and one of them was the part where it's like he's got Ambrosius like running away, and if you don't stop and turn around, I'm never feeding you again. And you hear that skin
King.
they come back.
Of course, when of course that Podling in the mech comes up to them, Ambrosius goes and hides, and you can hear the damn dog shivering, and he's like, "Ambrosius, get your butt over here! No, you're embarrassing me."
Yeah. And then we have this one part where Ambrosius is hidden himself in a building, and Didymus is like, "Ambrosius, unlock this door!" And then this dude taps him on the shoulder, and he turns around and he's surrounded. "Oh, had enough, eh? All right then, throw down your weapons, and I'll see that you're well treated."
See, I feel it was, and maybe it's just because of recent things that I'm focusing on, but they missed a moment to have like a lone wolf and cub minute right there, where he took out like 6 dudes with his little lance, and it turns out that he wasn't just a loudmouth; he's really a badass. Like, I think if I made the movie, that's how I would have done it.
It does have that.
He did have his moment.
It does have that great callback though to, well, actually, I guess call forward because this came out the year before, but that great moment in the Princess Bride where it's like, "Oh, you mean you wish to surrender to me? Very well, I accept."
Yes.
I always love that.
Well, I mean, Didymus does have a moment beforehand when they turn around. He does that jousting moment. He clearly kicks that one dude's butt while doing it.
Yeah, he's got some chops. He does.
I don't run from anything, my lady.
He's true to his word on that.
But we must be quiet.
I'd roll with him and Ambrosia if I was on like a quest, you know.
Come, Sancho, let us go on our merry way.
Ludo, not so much. I feel like he's big and cumbersome. Well, he'd have his purpose, but he looks like he smells real bad. You know?
Ludo.
But he does call the rocks.
Yeah, but I mean, what if? How often? I guess that is a pretty handy skill. Never mind. I was gonna say how often would that really come in handy, but probably fairly often.
Plus, he could probably
battlefields.
He could probably bring up his big fist and knock the fuck out of anyone. That comes up to you. It's just like bringing Falcor into the real world. You know.
As much as I love
multiple times.
He does, but as much as I love the tiny man in the mech, I think that's a missed opportunity too. I'd have probably had Ludo like grab the axe and have one of those like awesome moments where he's like holding it back as they take off and they think he dies, and then maybe he comes in later and just starts wasting goblins with that big ass axe.
I can see that.
Drastically brought down the tone of the movie.
I was going to say, apparently you wanted a darker version.
All of a sudden, these guys are getting splattered against the fucking walls and shit.
They could have figured out how to fucking use that fucking battle mech, you know?
Hoggle wasn't very good at piloting it.
But then we would have had a Transformers movie before the J.J. Abrams version, so...
Dude, Hoggle almost killed them more times when he was in the suit than the little guy that knew what he was doing.
He seemed like he was having a good old time piloting it, though, that little guy. He was just like, hey, and just going at it like, hey, man, I'm enjoying this. This is just real fun.
It's his passion.
It's okay. I forgive you, Hoggle. You do?
And,
you are? Ludo.
Let's be sure. And I mean, this is, I'm sure, was noticed, but David Bowie really had fun in this movie. He had even said, like, look, compared to my old schedule, this movie schedule is nothing. This is like just relaxation time for me.
Yeah, it never seemed like there was a moment though where he wasn't absolutely given the role his best, you know.
And he was liked very well by the people in it too. So I mean, they really liked him as he went on.
I think there was a certain price though that was. I mean, obviously that's sort of part of the draw of the movie is the Bowie shit. But this finale scene here, I think, is one of the areas where it suffers a bit from that like forced music video thing, a little bit too. Actually, I think it's the only area where the movie really suffers because of it. The other musical numbers I really liked. This last one felt like less of a final confrontation and more of a quick David Bowie music video. And
I don't know. I just thought
Are
it
you
was
talking
kind
about
of
the one in the Escher scene?
I don't know. I thought the Escher scene was just it's a psychedelic coolness where he's just they're constantly doing the game of cat and mouse. It's that
it's
final
rad.
confrontation
Don't get me wrong. I'm not
beginning.
saying that it's not fucking totally cool. I'm just saying that it would have been cool to have that part and then like have like an actual final battle with Jareth where they're all working together and he's maybe singing during that or something if he really needed to have like another song in there. I just feel like you kind of just have this confrontation and she reads a line from the book and it's about it, really, you know.
I
like
will
other
say
than
that
the sweet music video.
I will agree that that just reading the line basically from the book kind of felt anticlimactic. I understand why, and it does have that purpose that that purpose of you have no power over me. Finally, understanding herself that she is truly the master of her own destiny, which is something that is kind of cool when you think about it. It just
True.
Because she for the first time realizes, I'm in charge of this. Not him, not anybody else. It's just me. And that's just that is cool. And he's trying his darndest throughout the whole, even the song, to do his best to belittle her and psychologically trick her into thinking that she is not as powerful as she is. He knows that she has the keys to everything. That's why he was like, crap, she's here. He was like, he actually legit panicked a little bit when he heard that.
It's the first time he breaks his composure
at the gate.
Only time really he breaks his composure in the whole movie is where he's like, holy shit.
And he's really the king of lies and illusion.
I guess
really and truly, once he has no.
I guess I really got a kick out of seeing the. I guess I really got a kick about seeing the behind the scenes of how they did the scene where all those stairs were upside down, sideways, crisscross, and suddenly he's underneath and then comes right back up. Well, apparently there was some kind of mechanical thing that
winched his fucking ass right up there. Huh?
Yeah, right. It was fucking genius. However they did it, because it looked like they did it fast, and all of a sudden he's like,
it's a trip. Yeah, I mean, and I think
optical illusion.
The final part of the movie where she's back, and she's having that like moment in her bedroom with the mirror and seeing the guys from the story. Like that's one of the coolest send-ups to nostalgia and like moments of letting people know that they don't have to fully grow up that I've ever seen in a movie,
Oh, yeah, that was definitely my favorite scene.
If I had to pick, that'd be my hands down favorite too.
It's got this vibe of like, did all of that really just happen? Or did she like imagine it? Like it was
right.
It's really trippy.
At the same time, it's like even if it didn't, she needed it,
Yeah.
And I love that message of like, every now and again through my life for no reason at all, I'm gonna need you guys, like all of it. It's like a good message of just because she did clearly grow up a bit through the movie.
Yeah, that really spoke to me today.
Yeah, and for sure, me too. And it's like just because you grow up doesn't mean that you can't still get lost in these stories. It doesn't mean that at some point in your life you're for no reason at all, like she says, you're just gonna need that thing.
Which is exactly why I went on this journey with you guys to still keep some of that nostalgia and that feeling like being a kid, except realizing that I'm an adult while I'm watching these some of these with
For sure.
with a little bit of nostalgia along with it. So
I've already gotten that with you guys for sure, man. Like there's movies like, you know, even shit like The Changeling that I'll be nostalgic for that in 20 years. I maybe am not now because I didn't grow up with it, but I liked it so much that I bought it, and it's gonna be one that's gonna be pulled out in the future to show my grandkids or some shit, you know.
Now, before we wrap up the plot, now here's an alternate take. Now, maybe this is because I'm a twisted person, and two, because my entire career places me at a point where I see almost everything as a disorder of the mind. And I look at this as like, this person has had a severe psychotic break, and she's giving in to it.
You think she Lizzie Bordened her family after?
Hey, you never know. That could be the that could be the end of it.
And so she did.
Lizzie
That's the
Borden,
part they don't show you. I don't know. It's just there's just something about that, like that whole confrontation of fantasy and reality, because everything, like with the Wizard of Oz, like Alice in Wonderland, everything that she sees, every character she interacts with, has representation in her room or in general in her life, and you can pick it up pretty easily. Matter of fact, most of them they slap you in the face with. Some of them are more subtle, like just hearing the music from the ballroom dance in her music box, or the labyrinth. We all had those little labyrinth. Well, some of us did. Those little wooden labyrinth things that you manipulate the marble by using the labyrinth. Yeah,
I used to have that.
But all of it, there is that subtle hint that maybe every single bit of this is in her mind. And the way to look at this in a positive way from that is, as you all said, that maybe she's growing up and she understands, but she's willing to at least indulge her childhood for a little bit longer before she truly grows up into a mature adult.
That's the way I prefer to interpret it, and I think that final sort of exchange with the characters about the nostalgia shit, I think, kind of drives that home for me.
I suppose it's better than the film Harvey, where he just passes along his delusion. So.
The Labyrinth 4, you know. I could see him doing like that's just where she just becomes Lizzie Borden, just chopping motherfuckers up. On that note, I guess, you know, briefly, since the majority of us here are like horror people outside of Jake, maybe, how would you guys compare this to her performance in Phenomena? Because I've always, you know, like kind of favored that one. I think that she's kind of doing her same Jennifer Connelly thing or whatever, but
I mean, I think she's
not hugely good.
I think she's fine, like as a believable character in this. I think she has somewhat more to do in Phenomena.
Yeah.
Because here she's just kind of wandering around bewildered, for lack of a better.
She's the avatar for the movie. We get to put ourselves in her position and wander through the labyrinth.
Bewildered and snotty. There we go.
Well, I think that probably speaks to that theme of kind of growing up on this journey.
Oh yeah,
true. I think if a lot of people, because it seems like this is her performance that always gets praised by everyone, and I feel like that's 100% like a nostalgia thing. I think if they watched her in just about everything else, she's better, technically. And Phenomena is a good example of something from the time she was given more to do in. She's definitely been in other stuff. I mean, nothing jumps out at me at the moment, but I have seen her in things, you know. She's also one of those weird Illuminati, like, Hollywood people that fucking has never really aged much.
Right.
Cue the X-Files theme, David.
do, do. There, let's see. There we go. See.
So I guess we should move to like.
There we go.
I know we've touched on it throughout, but of course the special effects in this movie. I mean, even the CGI owl, if you look at it for the time period, it is all amazing stuff.
Dude, if I spent that much animating a fucking owl, you bet your ass it's the entire title sequence too. I was mostly joking.
I forgot.
Well, I mean, it's
Rocketeer.
well, that is something though that you notice later on because we're used to seeing like all this other stuff. So when we look back on it, it doesn't look all that great, and we're just kind of like, oh wow, how far we've come. That was the peak of
Right.
computer animation back in those days. But
And to be fair, it's like sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but to be fair, it's like the only part of the movie that doesn't hold up. You know, everything else is perfectly in tone with what they're doing. The acting is a bit. There is times where it feels like she's reading her lines from a children's book, but that's exactly the intent, I think. You know,
well, that's what makes it special. But that's the cool thing about it. I really love this film in a lot of ways. I still love this film, and it's really cool. The practical effects is where the magic really happens in all of these films. I mean, who doesn't love good practical effects, especially people who are into horror as a company? Because horror, I think, shines the most when the effects are practical. I don't know if anybody else agrees, but that's
oh,
my
definitely.
thought.
There's very little things in a horror movie I can fucking see a justification for full CGI on, other than if you're gonna do like a tidal wave of zombies.
I agree.
I guess, you know, like go ahead, CG it in, but CGI squibs piss me off. Like, if it can splatter for real, why fake it? It's actually, I think it's cheaper nowadays, too, to just do it for real. So, I don't know. But it really is, like, I think if especially people that came up in this era of stuff where you had multiple Henson things that were more in your face than now. You know, because Jim Henson isn't as big of a deal now as he was like when we were kids or something in the early mid '90s kind of deal, and really able to start fully appreciating these movies. So, Dark Crystal and Labyrinth and shit like, you know, the first couple of Muppets movies in the show or Fraggle Rock all are a huge fucking deal to me, and then Farscape blew my goddamn mind as a kid. You know.
Oh,
That's why it's still like, that's my Star Wars. I loved Star Wars, but Farscape was the first thing that ever kind of took its place because the Henson, you know, like that vibe to it. And there's even Henson in Star Wars, if you really think.
Oh yeah, Yoda.
Yoda's a fucking Muppet,
Yoda
baby.
alone, and Jedi was all Henson right there. I mean, it was just like the big thing. Yeah, you can't really have a lot of this stuff without having Henson.
No, this would not be the movie we think it would be without him. I mean, I don't honestly think this or The Dark Crystal would have worked done by anybody else. It had to have been animated, and then it would have just been forgotten back then.
Well, of course, if you noticed, George Lucas was one of the executive producers behind this film too. So there was some of his money going into this film too, which kind of foreshadowed some of that Star Wars influence.
And he also did contribute to the screenplay and etc.
Oh yeah,
That's all that fucking whole clique of dudes, man. Even Toby Hooper was like peripherally associated. That's why he ended up directing, finger quotes, Poltergeist. Apparently, he was just mostly there, kind of doing stuff. Those motherfuckers out there burning those owls in the woods in dark robes, you know. I don't think that's some tinfoil hat shit, but yeah, that was a tight clique of dudes when you really think about it. All those associated directors, from Spielberg and Lucas on down to fucking Sam Raimi and those dudes. Like there was that whole generation of dudes seemed to just be kind of lightning in a bottle in the same way those early Universal people were the sort of lightning in a bottle of their horror generation.
Yep.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I really feel people don't give Henson a lot of the respect that he deserves when it comes to being the founder of a lot of modern practical effects. And you can see it in this film, from the costume design to the makeup.
I mean,
to, as I said, with all the
fantasy world building too.
There were things that were never ever done before. I mean, if you look at the behind the scenes, how many buttons controlled Hagel's head?
Yeah, exactly.
And it had to be controlled by 4 different people outside of 5, in fact, outside of the uniform. So, I mean, that goes into special effects. So, what did we think about the special effects of the film?
Well, I think a lot of that speaks to just Henson coming from a puppetry background instead of from like a movie background.
Yeah.
Those guys figured out ways to make things work. I took a fucking class on how to build a Muppet, dude, and I could build you a Kermit the Frog right now.
I'm not even
that
sure
would be Muppet identical.
I'm not even sure if you could call Jim Henson's puppets. They were like magic,
No, they're Muppets. It's his own fucking, personal formula of making like badass puppets, dude. You really got it. You guys got to check out that Jim Henson documentary that I was plugging earlier. I fully back that.
That thing is free.
If Hunt Land on YouTube, watch it immediately.
I mean, right now he's building up to the.
Jim Henson's one of those few dudes. Go ahead. No.
I was saying right now he's building up to a true Disneyland background documentary, which is building that. It's gonna hit, and that's gonna be pretty darned awesome. With his origins of.
I've been digging it, and you know what's weird is didn't he release the Disneyland China one like shortly before or right around the coronavirus outbreak? I feel like that was one of his recent videos was the Disneyland Hong Kong fucking, and then all of a sudden there's reports of Disneyland Tokyo and shit getting shut down for coronavirus. It's good stuff. But, Jim Henson, back to my original point, is one of those few creators that, like, almost everything we got of him back in the day was innovative. It was shit that has been since duplicated for practical purposes by everyone to some point, I mean, we'd be kidding ourselves if we didn't think throughout any of that production of The Mandalorian, they weren't directly basically referring to Jim Henson shit as notes on how to do that Baby Yoda puppet. So by extension of his legacy, that shit's a fucking Muppet, dude. And it's born off of something that is technically a Muppet.
What do you guys think about the idea of a remake of a Labyrinth in the near future? Because one has been announced.
It makes me want to throw a rocket on the windshield.
I don't know how you could. Did you say remake?
Apparently.
How could you even do that? Like, this is such a unique movie.
Well, apparently there's a director supposedly behind it. So
I'm not saying he should be physically hurt, but I'm willing to throw a rocket at his windshield while his car's parked in his
driveway. Brian Henson is a producer behind it. So,
of course.
Well, maybe it'll be okay then. I heard they did a great job on the Crystal series on Netflix.
We'll see.
So I guess we'll see.
It's like the positive side would be that, and the negative side would be the Happy Town Murders.
Hey, I liked the Happy Town Murders. Like I think Happy Town Murders. I thought that was fine.
I think what I'd
I mean,
prefer
yeah, it
above
was
a
weird, but-
remake would be like a continuation of it. Take some of the stuff from the comics that I mentioned and flesh out like new original stories in that fucking setting.
There is still the Dark Crystal sequel still on the horizon too, which has always had the tentative title of The Power of the Dark Crystal.
Yeah.
So,
I need to see
and
that.
it's gotten a recent poster for it, I guess.
I need to see the series. The Netflix series looks pretty awesome.
I still haven't been
I've
able to get around to watching it. Man.
I've watched about half of it. It's pretty good so far.
Is that just a one-off like season, or is it supposed to be a continuous thing?
It's supposed to be a continuous thing. I know that because it's on Netflix, it may actually just get a second season down the road, you know. So,
Well, definitely worth checking out. I know that. I'd love to see a Labyrinth series. Tell you the truth, that'd be kind of cool.
so
That's what I'm saying. Like, instead of doing a fucking remake, do like a continuation of stories set within it. You know, that isn't the only baby they kidnapped. They had a whole fucking song like wrote and rehearsed for when they kidnapped a baby. You know?
Do we want it animated or do we want it live action?
I do. I think it'd be cool. See, that's the thing. That's the one thing I've got on you guys with this is I read the comics, and they are actually a whole hell of a lot of fun. You know, it's a cool continuation of it.
I could see them turning it into a series if they came up with
they
the
could
right
do one where it's like, dude, check it. They could do one, and I think this is basically what they build to in the comics. Again, I only had the first like 10 issues or 11 issues or something.
Yeah.
Or that's what I have currently. Basically, the whole idea of like Jareth being a baby that was lost in a similar fucking circumstance, and then he became a goblin and eventually the Goblin King.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Netflix series.
Or we could get really crazy. My friend Trent, his friends, they did like a group costume with Labyrinth. So I think he was Jareth. His girlfriend was Jennifer Connelly, and his friend Matt was the baby.
Yeah,
it's like the favorite thing that they did.
Oh, I mean,
complete with giant body. It's actually pretty messed up now that I say it out loud.
Of course, the question.
Well, do you guys have like a favorite effect in the movie? Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
Oh, a favorite effect
would be just Hoggle itself was just a cool effect, but any of the puppeteering to me was just fun. Just seeing the imagination into it. So there really was it's hard for me to pick any favorites.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Dustin?
Can I count? So it's kind of like a little thing. There's that blue caterpillar that she sees that she kind of at the beginning. I really liked that. I felt that was a cool character. I really enjoyed that.
Didn't you want to go have tea with him in his house? He missed this whole discussion.
Yeah,
I would have went in and met the missus, honestly.
I said hello.
Yeah, I mean,
come back for tea.
What about you, Nick?
Hello, hello. It's close enough.
Oh no! From the effects of Ludo stepping on the rocks when they farted, to you know, the effects of some of the puppeteering and the god awful slapstick comedy in the Goblin War. I mean that last few scenes were fucking hilarious. I mean, I have some nostalgia for this film, probably a lot more than Dark Crystal. Although now that I've seen the Dark Crystal, I get some of it, and you can laugh at some of the parts in there too. It's a lot more of a darker story and darker tone than this film. entirely.
Really analyzed my taste. Dark Crystal is one of those movies that would be a huge fucking contributor to like what eventually became my preferred flavor of shit. From a lot of things.
Well, and I love that we've already gone on about the Dark Crystal before. So
I'm definitely gonna have to give that a listen tomorrow at work, man. I'd like to hear what you guys all have to say on it. What about you, Jake? You got a favorite effect?
Oh, it was a
I think we've pretty much covered, like Brandon said, the sheer amount of work that went into not just Hoggle, but a lot of those characters. I know that was the most detailed one, but I don't recall if we discussed this, but when we talked about the magic dance scene. I think we talked a little bit about this, but they had I think it was 48 puppeteers working that scene.
yeah.
And not to mention like he said, some of the little people in the outfits and Bowie and a couple other people actually on set. So you had a ton of people making that one little scene happen.
It's magical.
So yeah. So that was very impressive. But they talk about how with Hoggle they had 5 people had to coordinate their movements. They had to rehearse so that they knew what each one was going to do. And so yeah, that was probably the most impressive overall. Yeah.
I think if I had to pick, honestly, as much as I love the puppeteering and all the shit, the set design is probably my favorite effect in the movie. I love a movie that's shot on the soundstage for some reason. It gives it this otherworldly quality that you don't get when you fucking shoot like a movie in the wild or whatever.
It does have that vibe, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's like a Wizard of Oz thing. That's the best way that I can describe it, where it feels like this manufactured environment, and that makes.
I bet this movie would be insane on DMT or something.
Fuck yeah, let's do it. If I had to put a horror comparison to it, I would say stuff like Eaten Alive by Tobe Hooper has a similar vibe, where it's like this soundstage vibe. It makes the movie special in this sort of intangible way. It's just it feels like you're in a dream or something like that.
It's kind of a where are we? What's going on sort of vibe.
Yeah, this feels real but not, and I think that's where the Labyrinth shines the most of all, is in set design. The whole Labyrinth itself, the painted backgrounds, the set design, every bit of it is just fucking awesome. The swamp.
I got the same vibe with the sets like we did with the Flash Gordon movies. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know if it's the same quality.
No, not the same quality, definitely.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Where it's like it gives you that fucking feeling like you're watching some unreal reality kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah,
that's why I brought up Eaten Alive also. If you guys have not seen it, it's dope. It's based somewhat on a true story. Dude's feeding travelers to crocodiles at his hotel. It's Psycho with a scythe and an alligator.
Oh, good.
It's all shot on a soundstage, so it's it feels like watching Psycho, but in this weird vibe, like it's a play or something, or
of course story. The ultimate extreme of that I've seen would be Dogtown? Am I remembering that correctly? That Lars von Trier one.
Yeah. Dogtown was none.
That's what I'm saying.
They used the various tape and the sound to work with.
Yeah, they had an empty soundstage with minimal props and chalk outlines of the buildings. And that's the ultimate example I can think of, taking that to the extreme.
How about Calypso?
I know what you mean. I know what you mean, though, the otherworldliness. It can be a fun aspect to it.
Yeah, if they play up to it, right? it can be crazy, and I think that Labyrinth is a particularly good example of that. Obviously, on a higher budget scale than I think we're probably thinking of when we think of these movies, but.
And I guess if we're into the technical and artistic aspects of this will be the point where Dave gives us the insight into his selection of this for our music lovers.
Well, the reason why I chose this for the musical march theme is because, well, David Bowie is so iconic.
Well, yeah.
And a figure. I mean, like I said before, he's got his own fashion statement whenever he dresses. I imagine that he was able to choose his own wardrobe in this whole thing, and his wardrobe is phenomenal.
Well, it's basically the same costume too until that point where they're in the dream, and then he's just like, snap, fucking costume change, check it out, check out my white feathers, I love that fucking part.
Yeah, you gotta ask though, like if as big and poofy as hair was in the 80s already, imagine what it would have been if this movie had been an immediate success.
Dude, I'm Canadian, bro. So like, I had an aunt that tried to do that hair until like 1998. So it's a weird thing about Canada. It was like the mid 80s to like 93. So some people fucking held on to that shit for a while. And my aunt was doing that fucking like basically almost picture perfect David Bowie hair for a long time.
So what did everyone think?
But of course, that is the thing that.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I think this was worthy of Music March and our Music Lovers March as we do, because it really was. It wasn't just a musical. Music was a part of it, in not just the songs, but just in general. This has an excellent soundtrack.
The score is great. Like a lot of it gets laid on, and the praise gets laid on the Bowie music. But what was it, Terry something, the dude that did the actual score?
Trevor Jones.
Trevor Jones, there you go.
Trevor Jones, yeah.
That was totally fucking like worthy of the accompanying David Bowie music, I think.
Wait, Trevor Jones did the score on this? Because I know he did From Hell, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Trevor Jones, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, actually. And there is elements of it, of the score part of it, that I could see being used, and like, because I just watched the Poltergeist trilogy right before watching this, and there's elements of the score part of it I could see being used in maybe like at least the first Poltergeist.
Oh yeah, and apparently he also did the score in Dark City, which Jennifer Connelly also played in there.
She is in there.
Yeah. Last of the Mohicans.
Dark City.
So.
It was an awesome score. It just had, like I say, it's just cool that I've been trying to listen every time I get to one of these. I've been trying to listen to the soundtrack just on its own before I get in on this. And of course, I used to own the soundtrack on physical. I still have the ripped, but I was in a nasty car accident probably around 2001. And that destroyed more than half of my CD collection. And it is a shame because there were some really good ones, and this particular soundtrack is quite rare to get on physical. But it is worth it just to listen to the whole. Oh,
he also
Really? This is a pretty popular title. I'm kind of surprised that there wouldn't have been.
Yeah, I would think it'd be massively.
He also did the score. He also did the score for Dark Crystal as well.
Right.
So,
and Arachnophobia, apparently.
And he's like, this one and now this one and the Mad Max soundtrack. Those two are out of print. And you can get it. You can get it digital pretty easily because It's really sad, the state of it these days. I mean, there are a lot of bands that aren't even releasing. I was looking for the new. Gosh, I was looking for the new Bowling
Mhm.
for Soup albums that were there just to try and see that, and I noticed they never did a physical. Kind of weird. The vinyl's coming back, but CD releases just aren't.
Oh, coming back hard, especially for soundtrack collecting, man. A lot of people are fucking horror soundtracks on vinyl. I wish I had the money to throw away on that. I do. It's just, it's not. Well, I don't know if it's thrown.
Doesn't stop me.
If I
It seems a good investment if you're like an audiophile that also likes horror.
I mean, it's fun, but
Yeah.
it's horrifically expensive.
It really is. I see him at the comic shop, man.
Yeah,
I almost
wish
bought
had
the
money for that.
soundtrack to, I think it was Boogie Omega, but it was
Oh, that would
like
make it valuable.
$60.
Oh yeah, a good one.
You know, I'm not
Ugh.
If you see the fog, let me know.
the fog.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep an eye. I'll put it on my
Some of
list.
the collectible vinyl is pretty valuable.
Mhm.
Put it politely.
Well, if I happen on it for a good price, it's yours, dude. I keep
Okay.
it worth so I can keep an eye out for people and stuff.
And I wish I could find the box of souls. It's like the first 7 Nightmare on Elm Street movies on vinyl in one box. Pretty cool, but it's
wow.
just not. It's just like 200
Oh,
some
wow,
dollars.
that's pretty-
See, that's some
Yeah,
shit I
that's
would
some
buy. You know, if it was like good.
Yeah. No,
What were you saying, Brendan?
you're right. Only worth buying, getting something like that. I
Yeah,
agree.
this is
Agree
one
with you. It'd
where
definitely be worth
as
getting something
awesome
like
as
that.
the score is, on this bitch, the David Bowie tracks outshine, like the musical numbers do outshine it a
I
little.
mean, it's David Bowie. He's like one of the
Yeah.
best musicians ever.
Exactly. It kind of goes without saying when you have a rock star in the fucking movie that there's probably like those musical numbers are going to be more memorable than the soundtrack.
Mhm.
It doesn't exactly
Yeah.
have the Reanimator theme hidden in there or something. There's no, like super banging track on the score. It's the banging tracks are the David Bowie ones.
Oh yeah. So that
Yeah.
puts us back
It's
on track
definitely
to
not-
Was that
Go
Brendan?
No, go ahead.
you were going to say something. I was going to say favorite scenes.
No worries.
I like that ending. I think the most of all,
Favorite scene for me
because
is
it was.
Oh, Brandon's on a delay.
Oh no. Well, I was just gonna say, like I said it earlier, that it was just kind of uplifting and kind of meant a lot to me in context. But go ahead, Brandon.
I mean, the magic dance for me is the favorite scene for the movie. It's just fun. It has a lot of energy, and the song itself will be my favorite, probably for all time in this particular.
I think my favorite scene would probably be the whole optical illusion part of the right before she says her lines. I just love the look of it, and after seeing the behind the scenes of how he did that fucking trick, it's pretty amazing to me. So,
Mhm.
and what about you, Jake?
Yeah, the fact that he
Go ahead.
I was just saying the fact that he,
Okay.
if you think about all of the stuff with those magical balls that he had, I mean the crystal balls, how many got broken during that entirety? It's just kind of funny.
Actually, one thing that I did hear or read about that's kind of cool is apparently with all those tricks he was doing with the balls
It's
and
like a
whatever.
dude from behind.
It was
Yeah,
a dude behind him. It was actually like a
I
professional
remember that.
juggler,
Hmm.
and he was
Like
doing
what?
it blind, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that was
and
impressive.
didn't he do it in like a super low amount of takes too? I feel like I remember reading or hearing. Like it
Something like
was not very hard for the dude to do that stuff without looking at it. He
Yeah.
did fumble a couple of times because obviously he's not seeing what he's doing.
Yeah. So for me, I would say
Can you imagine the position? No, hold up. Can you imagine being the dude with your face pressed up against David Bowie's ass, doing marble tricks in front of him or some shit, and then just being escorted off? Thank you, sir. You gave this guy a very magical reach around, but we are done with you. They could have given him a cameo in the movie or something just as like payment.
I'll bet there were some people that when they learned of this were very, very, very jealous.
I'll fully be the first to admit right here that as a kid, I thought David Bowie did all that shit. So like, I thought that he was fucking like magical, you know. And I didn't
Right.
have the rock star input to it because I was too young to be familiar with his music. But as a
Right.
little kid, I thought that shit was like real, you know.
See, for me, and this may be blasphemous for some, but it's really weird. Bowie is someone I could not connect a song to him until probably 10, 15 years ago. I had heard a lot of his stuff over the years, but I didn't know it for, I didn't know who it was. So, but part of that is because he changed his sound so often that it was kind of, it's distinct
Oh,
and
yeah.
yet not distinct, if that makes sense. It's
Dude.
like, yeah.
Unfortunately, again, I got to be the person here to admit this, but I'm not a fan of David Bowie or anything. You know, like his music prior to this, I could give a fuck about. He seems. I've tried.
Whoa, hey now, what?
I've listened to some of it. He seems like one of those dudes like Frank Zappa, where he was kind of weird, and if you didn't really get it at the time or it doesn't immediately click with you, it's probably not your thing. And that's kind of where I'm at with the David Bowie stuff. Like I guess
I get that.
He was He was a pretty solid actor, and I think it's a shame he didn't have more acting roles. But
right, I'd agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the music's bad or anything. It just isn't.
It's not your thing.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, I'm remembering,
But
kind of
yeah,
a fun,
don't
I guess, tie-in.
Okay,
if anybody's seen Venture Brothers,
oh my god,
yes.
Venture Brothers,
The
so
League
much.
of Calamitous Intent.
yeah, the kind of main villain who's not really around, like the leader of the Guild of Calamitous Intent. He's a shapeshifter, and the form he typically uses is David Bowie, like from Labyrinth, and he has powers based on Labyrinth. Like he can turn into an owl and fly away.
Right.
Dude,
it's pretty great.
I probably find more reasons to like you more, buddy. Venture Brothers was like Adult Swim to me. That was one of my shows, right? That and C Lab, I think, were.
Well, if you have the DC streaming service, the new Harley Quinn show is kind of close, just with official characters. Like it has kind of that Venture Brothers like weird vibe. It's hard to explain.
I keep hearing good stuff, and
it's pretty dope. I love it.
Yeah.
Is there any previous shit? Because Brandon offered me like a Harley Quinn DVD the other day, but is that in like the same vein, or is that a different Harley Quinn thing?
It's probably a different
that's
thing.
a different thing.
Dealio.
Yeah.
This is a totally new series just on the
Although I
streaming service.
think it's the same. I think it's the same voice actress. I could be wrong, but Kaylee Cuoco did do the voice for her on a couple of those movies. But she's been through a couple of voices: Hendon Welch and Tara Strong, and
Arlene Sorkin, I think, was the original.
She was the original. She was the genesis of Harley, but that's a whole other topic we could do another time.
Oh, that's its own very deep conversation. But after the episode, Mo,
going
I know
back,
where you. I know how you can see that. I'll tell you.
Sweet, thanks.
Actually, going
so-
back to David Bowie as a whole, as a musician, just to with David Bowie, I really don't think there may be a few, but I really don't think that they're in love David Bowie for all of his work, because his work, no two David Bowie albums are the same thing. That's one thing that I noticed. Like, I can tell you right now, there are some David Bowie albums I don't like. Some I can say I can't stand. Stardust, and there's a couple others on top of that that were albums that I really enjoyed. And so
Wasn't he kind of an experimental
I always tell
musician?
people,
He was,
David-
yeah. He was, on sort of that same, I think, wavelength
He really
as
was.
like a Frank Zappa. He was doing different things. Like Brandon just
Right.
said, no two of his albums were the same. He was
Or-
kind of
or
just
like-
doing whatever he felt, you know.
Or like a good example, my
I would-
favorite group is Nickel Creek, and they're extraordinarily experimental. Some of their music is borderline music, but but some of it's incredible. So it's
I used to really love Dream Theater, and they were kind of the same thing for a while.
Yeah.
Dream Theater fucking rules, dude. I saw them live twice. Definitely.
Well, until Mike Portnoy quit, and they sound completely different
Well,
now.
yeah. What is it with people too discriminating against Mark Portnoy? Do you hear about that fucking dude that was like impersonating him for a long time?
What?
Dude, look into it. The Mark Portnoy impersonator. That shit is fucking hilarious.
That's so. I don't even know anymore.
See, I think
I know, he was kind of
dude,
the quality control for the band.
right, exactly,
Yeah.
and he was that. I think for every band that
Yeah.
he's been in. But seriously, like, I think the reason that
dropped
I
out
don't
of, like,
identify with
60
Bowie's music is simply because it's just different generation.
That was one of
I
my,
think.
that was one of my
Yeah.
favorite albums. That was great.
Alrighty. On that note, I think
Wow, we got
all
lost
about who it
again.
is.
uh,
Yep, let's I guess we'll
Regardless of what you think of David Bowie, this movie is pretty dope and it's worth seeing. It may or may not be a good idea
Oh, yeah.
to do so on substances, kind of depending on what your perception of storytelling is.
It is always a good idea to do it on substances. So just take it on this, people. That's basically what we're gonna tell you now. But you don't need them. Is the fun part.
no.
Well, I finally figured out to fight through the sickness I was feeling at the start of the episode. A lot of industrial strength cough syrup, known as what is this? Jaeger something. I don't know. I think it's that hot ginger stuff.
Oh, that shit. The stuff with the deer on the front. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I feel a lot better now.
Jaeger definitely helps.
Yeah, I need to give this like an additional watch with like the commentary and stuff.
Yeah, I believe the Spanish call it El Blanco licorice. You know what I mean?
Sure, why not? That's probably correct, but
Shit, I wish I was having Jaeger shots with you right now, man. I think at the end of the day, though, Labyrinth is definitely a movie that everyone should see at least once. If you're somehow listening to this and you've not seen The Labyrinth, it's just one of those movies you should see. Much like Beyond Thunderdome, which we're going to be covering. Is that next week or a week after, guys?
Yeah, next week.
Yep.
Yep. And I just
Next week we
you
have
know,
it.
these are those movies that are essential 80s viewing, I think. You know, it's right there with like Splash and Turner and Hooch and fucking various
yeah, my spring break starts next week, and it got extended an
Ah.
extra week for coronavirus, so I have a 2-week spring break.
Dude, you should go to Cape Cod and try to meet a mermaid. That's what I'm saying. It might change your life.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do with
And I
myself.
go to Cape Cod, I want potato chips.
You know what you should do, Dustin? is take that spring break. So you've had a rough time lately, so you should just relax, kick back, like buy yourself whatever you drink on the regular, and just sequester yourself in your awesome little horror dungeon down there, and just review like a series of movies. You know?
Well, we're working on upgrading that to. I think we're starting to rebrand as the Apartment of Horror, which is a bit less derivative of Adam Green's podcast. Which I know it's kind of funny. Like, I'll see something, and then like 8 years later, I'll think, "Oh yeah, here's an original idea I had," and then it's like, "No, you actually saw something kind of like that a very long time ago, and just it got ingrained into your consciousness."
Mm-hmm.
On that note, I think that's all the time that we have for today, folks. So why don't we see exactly who we are? So I'm going to go start off with you, Brandon, and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
We are a channel dedicated to the love and collection of physical media. We do enjoy doing various things such as pickup videos and various what's coming out videos. Matter of fact, we recently improved our quality. We used to use 1 or 2 sites. Now we use 4 different sites to dictate what's coming out, just because of the sad but gradual phasing out of physical media, which is an aggravating thing. But we will fight the good fight until it is all gone.
Mm-hmm.
So also on the site we do various movie reviews. Matter of fact, one recent review that was done was the Kane Complex, which is a very interesting look into another person's internal fight with his demons. And upcoming will be reviews of Evil Dead Trap 1 and 2, which we covered here on Inside Movies Galore not long
You
ago.
sexy beast.
And
That's
of course,
a movie we could do.
one of the most impressive is going to be Friday, where we finally are doing our NIS project, which we dissect
Beginning.
the various shows from NIS America when they did a short run of anime production. And we have, between us, have seen all of the titles that have been released. So we're going to just take a look at each show, analyze them, and then at the end of it all, we're going to just take a look at it and just see how did it stack up as a company's as far as release quality at the end. And we've covered about half of the titles. Jake's going to come back and cover the ones that he hasn't seen, and eventually at the end we'll do an epilogue. This is the beginning of something probably longer in the future.
He's grossly underselling his strolls that he's been doing recently too, where he takes little trips through various segments of his collection. I highly recommend you check it out. I've been enjoying those while I'm at work lately.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's cool. Yeah, we did a video game stroll just recently.
He did, like yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, the next in the rotation's going to be the music stroll.
Fresh off the press, baby. Get on it.
And speaking of, I also do help organize the stuff for Inside Movies Galore when it comes to our topics and so on. First, of course, our topic is Music March, and as Mo had said, we are going to be doing Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. I'm really excited. That was a lot of my childhood right there. And as a pre-show, which is why we had no pre-show this week, because it's going to be a massive freaking pre-show, we are covering Mad Max, Road Warrior, and Fury Road to
I
just whet
cannot
y'all's
wait,
appetite. So, you know,
The only
I know
thing I'm
my
more
stuff.
hyped on at the moment is Lone Wolf and Cub, and as you know, I'm pretty hyped on that. Like, Mad Max is going to be fucking epic, guys. You definitely need to be here for that.
Tuned for Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome and the pre-show because it's going to be massive. and it's going to be a fun ride.
Definitely. Going over to Dustin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm the Crypt of Horrors on YouTube. I'm a horror collector living here in Milwaukee while I go to school. So my channel is the Crypt of Horrors, where I show off like the ridiculously cool stuff I find here, there, and everywhere. I also have an Instagram for my horror collection, and I'm currently grappling with Twitter being an asshole to me. It sucks. It sucks quite a bit.
We both also recently tried Slasher, so you know.
Oh yeah, we're on Slasher now too. I need to add that to my link tree. Because I had to make a Twitter account dedicated to the Crypt of Horrors brand, and it seemed to be okay. But I had like a stupid problem happen to me today. So it wants you to verify your phone number when you make a new account. And
I hate that.
Well, turns out I had like a quality filter like set on my phone that I didn't know I had done that. And so I was like, why isn't it calling? It was like, call to verify. And I was like, why isn't it calling me? And I'm just like mashing the call me button. And then I look over at my phone and it's like, oh, 10 missed calls. Okay. And I click it one more time to send me the code. And it goes through and I enter the code. And then it's like, too many attempts. You have been locked out. And it's like, ugh. I think I have to wait like a full 24 hours before like trying again. But yeah, my dedicated online presence account is oof. We're also working on being more active on the Inside Movies Galore official Twitter, INS Movies Galore.
Okay.
And we're actually making some posts. So we shared. So I think this will be the first live episode we've shared on that profile in a while.
Yeah, it needed some upgrading and downgrading and activity.
Well, we didn't mess with it for a while because it was just kind of like one more thing, But yeah, we want to try to get the show out there to as many people as possible, and hopefully they'll enjoy it. So, and hopefully you enjoyed it if you were listening to this. So,
definitely.
Yeah, we value all of our fans so much.
Mm-hmm.
Going over to Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
All right, Jake. I frequently guest on Septum Sin vs. World, and as Brandon said, we have some really exciting, much-promised video coming up that will be fun. We had fun with it. We will have fun with the others in this series, I'm sure. And also, I don't think he mentioned, or I didn't hear, it's really late, I don't know.
Yeah.
The last Friday, we had a very, very fun video that went up where we went through all of the films we had each seen from 2019. Supposedly 76 each, although I think in the end we realized I had 78 and he had 79. What was there? About 40 overlap. So there's a lot of movies on that list. That was good times. It was a lot of fun. We also do have. I also do have my own YouTube channel that is sort of floating out, twisting in the wind for the time being until such time as I come back to it and make it work again. It's Kotobuki Jake, so like it says, nature-themed channel. Mostly I have just been watching so much stuff to keep up with all the projects for the different channels.
Well, you do a good job of it, Jake. You're here more often than you're not. So
I give you credit because seems like I just keep having less and less time.
Yeah,
Me and
well, I know that
fucking
feeling.
Dave are wily motherfuckers too. We're always like, let's do this Western, and then like a whole creature discussion.
Well,
We'll get to it, bro.
I'm definitely ambitious. It's just a matter of getting down and getting nitty gritty with it all. So.
Right.
Jake, you do understand that you were like an integral part of Septemson versus the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no offense, Brandon, but without Jake, like you guys, I'll watch your videos when it's just you, but I love you guys together so much. Like that has gotten me through so many days at work. It's not even funny.
I like how
same thing with all your guys' discussions on here too. I've listened to a lot of them. The Maniac Cop one is one that's one of my favorites because the whole time I feel like that's kind of like, I don't know if I really think that movie's.
I can't get enough of. I still can't get enough of video intros with Jake getting attacked by the gingerbread man. So.
can't say that.
Yeah, I'm glad that's your favorite part.
Hey, dude, it is pretty good. And I don't know, man. You guys all work well together, and I definitely feel honored to be a part of it and stuff. And I think, Jake, you need to own up to more pride in it. Don't say you frequently guest on Inside Movies Galore.
You're part of Movies Galore.
Host.
Oh yeah, Movies Galore, yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. The same thing with Seth and Son. Like, you guys are co-hosts at this point.
Dear Lord, I think this is the best I've felt all day. Ugh.
Uh-oh, he's
Good
broken
deal.
ties.
It's good, buddy. You deserve it. You've had it rough.
I'm like 10 minutes away from blacking out.
Well,
Alrighty.
So you go have one final shot.
But in all seriousness, though, you are a valued part of the team there, Jake. So don't sell yourself so short.
You've gotten into a lot of separate discussions on the other channel with us. So team effort there.
You get there.
But in any case, Mo, don't sell yourself short either. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your state of your channel?
Well, I do Drunken Master Studios, where I just try to share mostly movie stuff, but just everything that kind of comes to mind. Lately, I've been doing a Lone Wolf and Cub series on there, which is just going to continue for like the next 4 weeks at least. So tune into that.
Just stick to it. That's all I can say.
Dude, my girlfriend's on it with me. Like, I'm out of my rut for sure. Lone Wolf and Cub is getting dissected down to the fucking last drop of like information people can get. I'm gonna review every single movie. I'm gonna review the special features on the Criterion. So I'm gonna review the set itself, and then we're gonna just sort of dig into it and see. There's gonna be a whole video showing where like Lone Wolf and Cub sort of branched out to, like Hanzo the Razor and Lady Snowblood and other things that manga creator did, stuff like that.
Sounds ambitious, and I wish you luck with it.
Yeah, it's gonna be dope. Easily the biggest thing that I've done. And then on the side of that, I'm trying to do like other specials for series that deserve them. So one that I have actually shot and edited right now is a Poltergeist special for the first 3 movies that's going to be going up tonight. I'm sure I'm going to get some dislikes because of the hate that it's not hate. It's like just disappointment in fishhawk, like stereotypical Indian stuff that they do in Poltergeist 2 that really kind of bums me out. That movie would be awesome if they didn't feel the need to force that in there for some reason.
Oh, it's kind of like how Adam Sandler treated the Indians on his ridiculous Sixth Sense.
And it's like in Poltergeist 3, they have the fucking doctor that just doesn't and thinks it's like some projection of mass hypnosis the whole time, even though he's being shown proof it's not. And it's like, they're just those
I don't know what that doctor was on. That was dumb.
those sequels would be great if they didn't suffer from those major characters that kind of dragged the whole thing down. You know,
Yeah, the
Like, if
sequels are underrated in that series.
3, or if you take the Doctor out of Poltergeist 3 or make him better, the movie
Oh yeah.
is better for it. You know, and same thing with the Indian. And I feel racist saying it, but it's not really. It's like it is embarrassing. Dude powers the guy up with the peace pipe at one point. You know?
I know. I thought that guy was pretty damn cool. I loved him.
Because he's a fucking fish hawk, bro. Like, that guy's in a lot of sweet movies as an Indian where he's like way better than in Poltergeist 2. You know? And that
I mean,
one,
technically Native American, but I don't.
well,
I
you
don't
know what I
know.
mean.
I
Not
know
really.
what you mean. It's okay.
They're doing the Hollywood Indian thing, so it's not. He's not even getting to be a Native American in it. Like in Fishhawk, I would argue he's a better portrayal of, like, even though he is drunk,
This film
he's a
is
better
just
portrayal of
Indian.
like an accurate Native American. You know, in Poltergeist, he's just doing sort of stereotypical Indian, like, you know, obvious finger quote things, you know what I mean? And it just makes the whole movie fucking kind of lesser for it. If that wasn't in there, it'd be great.
Me and my
Kinda.
Indian squad, we're going up to Hiawatha.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's
That's
gross.
kinda fucked.
But that's basically what I got going.
Quite
Lone
that
Wolf
bad.
Cub, and then I got a Poltergeist special. So check that out. And check out the Lone Wolf and Cub show. Watch
So
that.
are you gonna
too.
be branching out into Crying Freeman? I believe it's the other one that he did.
Well, my plan for it is to basically do that manga creator stuff. So it's going to be Lone Wolf and Cub, then Lady Snowblood, then Hanzo the Razor. Then I think after that I'll do the main flagship, like a Kurosawa samurai flicks, and then the samurai. And then after that I'll branch out into like other just Japanese cinema stuff, I think.
I was gonna say, because that's by the same author that did Lone Wolf and Cub. I was just curious. It's the only one that got made into an anime, which makes me wonder, because Lone Wolf and Cub was so awesome, it should have been made into an anime.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I'm gonna focus on the Chambara stuff, and we'll go from there. Check it out. Also check out Rebel Gaming Club, and obviously sub these guys up. Some frequent collaborators with them as well.
Okay, and then my name is David Strege, and I happen to have founded this this awesome channel that I run with most of you guys. So thank you for taking that journey along with me, and for having it last so long. I mean, we traveled the scales of this Labyrinth movie together, so that was fucking sweet. Kind of got lost with the Minotaur, but in any case,
Was there actually a Minotaur? Yeah, I guess there kind of was a Minotaur.
Ludo,
There was a
Nice.
couple stand-ins.
Ludo, man, Ludo Town.
I don't know, man. I'm on a different planet right now. Yeah.
But in any case, I also do some stuff on another channel called Delusions of Grandeur. So definitely check out some of that stuff. We've got some video of my collection that I've released maybe a couple of weeks ago. I was putting my room together, so now I've just got to put it back together because some of these tins are like out in the living room, or bins are out in the living room, and now I got to bring them back in here somehow. So once I do that, then I'll probably be able to go on some more about that stuff and finally get down to some reviews.
Yeah,
And
we got discussions on there though. We got some Western discussions. We got Six String Samurai up in that bitch.
Yeah, we do.
We do have some upcoming stuff, Dave.
Yes, we do. In
Another
fact,
Western discussion, and
I'm down for Kioma if you wanted to do that one Sunday, and then we'll do a kick-ass creature triple feature sometime after that. So we got some things in the works, folks. So,
And one thing I wanted to announce at the end of this video is it's definitely something we've prototyped, I guess you could call it, on my channel, but it is the Cinema Slut podcast, and eventually I would love to get all you guys on there because it's a one-on-one thing, you know. It would just
That'd
be
be
me
fun.
and like Brandon sitting down for a movie, or me and Dave. I'd like to start it off with interviews with you guys of how you got into horror and that type of stuff. Then you each pick like one of your most nostalgic movies to do with me. So just something to think about. You know,
Always,
you guys that are, go ahead.
Jake has to have Hostel as his
Hell no.
movie that he watches.
No. I veto.
I also veto. Fuck Hostel.
It's you know, it's basically a show, I think, to fucking have on the side of this, you know, because this is more of a group discussion thing with Cinema Sluts. I want to do like one-on-one. We just show how much like total sluts for cinema we all are, you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think it'd be cool. It'd be super rad to have all you guys on there at some point. So definitely something that we should incorporate into this, you know. And if you guys want to publish it on Movies Galore or wherever, I don't care. Like, I just want to do the discussions.
That'd be cool.
I've got like a good 6-pack of those in the bank already with my girlfriend and a couple of friends. So if you need like test episodes, there's those as well. But I just want to thank all you guys for including me in these on a regular basis, you know, and just making it fun to fucking dive into these movies, man. You know, I think all these people listening would appreciate you for it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd be happy to do it.
Oh, yeah.
No, my shit aside, I'm just saying for Movies Galore, you know, you guys do you do something special here.
Yeah, we are a team in this effort, so it's kind of cool to have everybody here. And I don't think we could do it without any one of us at this point.
Honestly, I think the only one that we couldn't do it without is Dave. I need that, like, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Like that, just it gives it to me, you know. Gives me that jolt. All you guys, though. I thank you guys for participating in this and for making your own content on YouTube. I enjoy each and every one of your channels, well, except Jake's, but I don't know if I've ever really looked at it. Is there videos on there?
There's like 3.
I think there's 6.
I think I feel like I'm confusing him with the Yes Ayasha nature videos where he's like, check out this caterpillar.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen those, Brandon?
Oh, yeah, well, I follow all of the members of the Rebel Gaming Club. Though I
I
admit your
once
content
ate a
is
dandelion on camera because I was remaking a essay video, and I ate an entire dandelion. It was not good.
I miss those. I really miss those farm videos and the Minecraft stuff that he did.
What do you think of that Marty shit?
Oh, that was excellent.
I
Rebel
thought I
Gaming
gave
Club
pretty
is,
good advice, you know.
Oh yeah, Rebel Gaming Club is probably one of the better channels out there at this point. No, excluding this channel, of course.
It's one I'm definitely hoping to contribute more to here soon. Like, I used to be on a good, like, regular schedule of it, but life sometimes happens, you know, as all you guys are fully aware. Sometimes you can't do one of those things as much. And that's what I love about doing these discussions is I can always sit down with you guys and talk about a movie. I can't always go shoot a bit for Rebel Gaming Club, you know. It's just not something that works out that way. So just thanks, I guess, once again, all you guys, Dave, you know, Brandon, Jake, Dustin, all you guys. Thanks a ton. And keep putting out your own content too, man. I love it.
All right. Well, and somebody dropped their mic. Everybody okay?
I think so.
You
All
alive,
right.
Dave?
Did I put everybody to sleep with my sentiments? I'm sorry.
I'm just looking to
Guess
see.
So, we need
Well-
someone to send us out, right?